the bite-size share for class number 11. This week's parsha, start off with the vert. We learn about the various sacrifices and offerings they would bring to the Beis Hamikdash. Now, one of them is the Karban Chatas, another one is a Karban Oila. The Torah tells us, and it actually stresses, that the Karban Chatas, the sin offering, has to be done in the same place that they would do the Karban Oila, which was normally done as a contribution, as a Karban Nedava. Somebody's donating, they decided they want to bring a sacrifice and offering for whatever reason. And the question is why? Why the stress that the Karban Chatas has to be done in the same place that the Karban Oila is done? So Rabbeinu Bechaya explains that the reason for this is that the Torah is telling us an important, not only important lesson, but important halacha. The Karban Chatas is being brought as a sin offering. Now imagine if the sin offerings were being brought in one place and the Karban Oila, the donations, were brought in somewhere else. Everybody would see that the people bringing the sin offering, the Karban Chatas, hey, that guy sinned, therefore he's bringing a Karban Chatas. Therefore the Torah says no, the Karban Chatas has to be done in the same place that the Karban Oila. The Karban Oila are the people are holding on a higher level. They're not bringing sin offerings, they're bringing contributions, they're going above and beyond, they're bringing an adava. At the same time, in the same place, there's people who are bringing sin offerings like that. We don't know who's bringing what. And the same reason is brought down that this is one of the reasons why when we pray quietly. If someone's, while he's praying, he wants to talk about some of his sins. As we know, prayer, while there's a set language for prayer, but there's also a person can have his own personal prayers, and also the way he says it, and he could be talking about some of his sins, and therefore you say it quietly in order that people don't hear the sins, because even if somebody did sin, you don't publicize it. And this is incidentally in the same note, it talks about when they would clean, there's one of the avodas, one of the services they would do in the Beis Hamikdash, which actually not considered an avodah, is not considered as an avodah, as a service. Any kohen could do it. They didn't have any raffles, any lottery, who could do it. But one of them was to clear out the ashes from the Mizbeach. Every morning, it had to be all cleared out. And this, it says, symbolized that among the ashes to bring, people brought sin offerings. It symbolized that after it was burnt, the sin offering was burnt, its ashes, there's nothing left. We have a clean slate and we start off new the next morning. That is a short word on the parsha, which we might get back to when we get to our Vart Chassidus. So, getting back to Tanya, we were discussing in Tanya that there's three garments: machshava, dibur, ma'isa, thought, speech, and action. And then we said that Torah, we started explaining that Torah is different, and that Torah is, when you learn it, through learning Torah, you connect to God. And now the Tanya goes on to explain that in a certain sense, Torah is even greater than doing mitzvahs. The Tanya will get back to doing mitzvahs a little bit later to stress what's important about the mitzvahs, what advantages mitzvahs have. But here we're first talking about the Torah, that there's advantages in the Torah even over mitzvahs. And for here, we'll turn to part of what we say on Friday afternoon. We say Pasach Eliyahu. Some say it. Pasach Eliyahu before Mincha on Shabbos, on Friday. And so we say, Les machshavet tfisa beklal, that our minds cannot grasp him. And then we talk about that through Torah, we're able to grasp God. Tfisa. Tfisa means grasp. And the question, why do we use the language grasp? Not the language, if I'm learning Torah, like Torah is wisdom, it's knowledge, it's something that I understand. So use one of those terms. Why tfisa? Grasp. And the reason is precisely because of that through Torah you actually are grasping God. The Torah is in a way different even than mitzvahs. Even though mitzvahs are also coming down into the physical, But Torah, it's coming in clothes. You're doing a mitzvah with your hand. You're doing a mitzvah with your foot. But it's not becoming part of you. Torah, you're actually having part of God in a certain sense, God's wisdom in you, that you envelop it, you surround it, and you grasp it. When do you grasp it? You only grasp it when you fully understand it. Until you only understand it on a superficial level. So the Torah and you, on your mind, are two different things. You didn't grasp it yet. You understood it, but you didn't grasp it. But once you understand it better, you actually understand, you're actually grasping this godly wisdom. And therefore, Torah is compared to bread. Just like bread, you eat it, and it sustains you, but you have to digest it. It has to become part of you. The same thing with Torah, you have to eat it until it becomes part of you, till you fully understand it, and then it sustains you. In other words, just like you have physical sustenance, so too, to give you a spiritual sustenance, something to keep you going, while you have the mitzvahs, which again we'll get to, the advantages that mitzvahs have over Torah. But over here we're talking about the Torah. You need the Torah. You need to have something, learn something, have something in you, a godly wisdom that will keep on sustaining you spiritually throughout the day. And that's why it's important to learn Torah. And even though you may not, when you're learning godly wisdom, you might be learning about cows goring other cows or whatever, other physical things. So you may not necessarily fully grasp that you are learning and grasping spiritual wisdom, but it's just like, explains just like a king. When you hug the king, you're not hugging the king himself. You're hugging through garments, right? He may be wearing 3 layers, 5 layers, 10 layers. But nevertheless, when you're doing that, you're still grasping him himself. And the same thing with the Torah, you're grasping the king himself, which is God himself, through understanding something, having some understanding, any word, anything that you fully grasp. In Torah, you're actually grasping and you're connecting. It's a unity with godliness. When you actually understand something in Torah, you're being unified with godliness, and that gives you sustenance. And this fact that it gives you sustenance through the day, that itself is actually a blessing that God gave the Jewish people, that you could connect to the Torah, not in a way that you connect to any other intellectual thing. In other words, there's how you learn some science or whatever it is, but you don't feel that connection to it as much as you could feel the connection to when you learn something in Torah. And this is actually something that God gave to the Jewish people, and he put into the Torah, that you have the ability to connect to God through Torah in a way that not like you're learning any other intellectual, philosophical science. And that's the greatness of the Torah, of learning Torah. Moving on to a short halacha. So this actually pertains to Pesach in a way. There is, you may have heard it, you may have not. It's about having wine, leaving wine uncovered. In the times of the Gemara, there was halacha that you could not have liquid that was left uncovered. You weren't allowed to drink it because you were scared of snakes or other poisonous things that may have drank from the liquid and left some poison. Therefore, you were not allowed to drink it. Nowadays, where it's not common to have snakes, the halacha is that you are permitted to drink something that was left uncovered. However, when it comes to Kiddush, you're not supposed to have Kiddush. For Kiddush wine, should not be left uncovered, meaning it should not be wine that was left uncovered. You should not use it for Kiddush. First of all, because it's not respectful. I saw a vert. Some people say because the wine is compared to the yayin hamishumar. This is more a drush vert, but it says because the wine is like the yayin hamishumar, the guarded wine that we will have when Mashiach comes. So the same thing, this wine that we're going to use for Kiddush has to be guarded. But the real reason is that it's not respectful. It starts losing its taste, whatever it is, and therefore the wine for Kiddush needs to be wine that was not left uncovered. The question is, what does it mean, wine that was not left uncovered? I mean, you obviously have to open the bottle to pour yourself a cup of wine. Some try to say that left uncovered means for a long, long time, just like we find by the Seder that we have the second cup of wine by the Seder goes from the beginning of Magid all the way to the end. So that's, depending on which house you're in, that could be for many hours. Others say that that's not necessarily proof, because over there you're involved in the mitzvah. So it could be that that's not necessarily proof. Bottom line, most say that if it's less than around 20 minutes, that it would be okay. But this is about leaving it open regularly. There is a tradition brought down from, a tradition brought down from the Baal Shem Tov that some bring, that the wine should not be left open, that wine should not be left open for Kiddush. So specifically, when you make Kiddush, you should have it covered. But let's say you had the wine uncovered for Kiddush. This is an important thing that comes up when people are at camps. They're at a Kiddush. There's only this wine there's one bottle of wine, and that one bottle of wine was left uncovered on the Kiddush. It's important to remember that wine is not considered pogum. Pogum wine means wine that somebody drank from and you can't use it for Kiddush. Blemished wine. Wine that was left uncovered during Kiddush, but not for a long amount of time. Kiddush doesn't take 20 minutes. It's not considered pogum. It is brought down from the Baal Shem Tov that you shouldn't use it, but if this is the only bottle of wine, halachically, it's fine to use that wine. Even in the first instance, you can use that wine. It's preferable to have wine that was not left uncovered during Kiddush. And then there's the other thing, which is not about being uncovered on Kiddush, for Kiddush, but it's in general that this bottle of wine was not left uncovered for a long period of time. So just to recap from the beginning, we first said we said the reason why the Karban Chatos, the sin offering, had to be brought in the Torah stresses, it has to be brought in the same place as the Oila, is because the Karban Chatos, which is brought for sins, we don't want people to realize why it was brought, that people are bringing for their sins. Therefore, you have to bring in the same place that the people who are bringing their contributions, their Karban Nedava, donations. Therefore, it's not clear that this person actually sinned. We also said that, sort of in the same vein, we say that the cleaning out of the ashes, which it also says later in the parish at the same spot, it says you have to clean out the ashes every night, is because you're starting from a new slate every day. Whatever sins that you had, it's clean, and now we're starting a new day. With regards to the word from Tanya, so we said that, just to answer one of the questions that somebody just texted me. So we said that with regards to Torah, it says you grasp till you grasp it. And someone asked, don't we say let's machshava tvisa beikla, that our minds cannot grasp God? And it's true that our minds cannot grasp God, but God put himself he constrained himself into his wisdom, into the fashion that we would be able to, because God sort of miraculously, and something that God did, that he constrained his machshava, his will, his intellect, his wisdom into the Torah through us grasping the Torah in a way of grasping, which we explained is different than just understanding. Grasping becomes part of you, that it's one with you, and that's when you can say that I fully understand it. So through that, you have an understanding, grasping of God's wisdom. You don't understand what God is. Let's machshava tvisa beikla means we don't understand what God really is, but we do have God's wisdom. Meaning, when we say it's God's wisdom, that is a way that we could actually connect by God putting himself in his wisdom into the Torah, and us understanding that we are, in a sense, enveloping and grasping godliness, God's wisdom, even if we don't fully understand God. Although it does say This is one of the points that learning Chassidus over Nigla is that in Chassidus, learning about spiritual things, so this thing that you're grasping is something spiritual. It's not just the physical, which is also Torah, but it's also something spiritual, which we'll leave that for a different time. And we said through this that the Torah becomes part of you, it sustains you, and it's actually a blessing that God put into the Torah. It's something unique that the Torah is able to sustain spiritually the person, and by connecting, your person could connect to the wisdom of the Torah much greater, much different than he would connect to some other wisdom. We're talking about, obviously, we're talking about in a way that you fully grasp this thing of Torah that you're learning. Then we said the halacha is that wine for Kiddush, wine that you're going to use for Kiddush should not be left open, preferably at least less than, if it's less than 20 minutes, it should be okay. Then we brought again from the Baal Shem Tov that people say from the Baal Shem Tov that during Kiddush it should not be open. But if it was left open, and that's the wine that you have, you are permitted to use it because the wine didn't actually become pogum by it being left open. It's just the custom is to have it closed for Kiddush. We're talking about that you're making a Kiddush less than the amount of time that something could be left open. Most people don't do a 20-minute or a half-hour Kiddush. So in other words, there's two separate things about leaving wine open and then having it for Kiddush. But that's just an extra thing from the Baal Shem Tov that they say, and it's not even clear exactly the source for it. But at a minimum, the Kiddush wine, that is a halacha that the wine used for Kiddush should not be left open all the time. So if you're going to aerate your wine, do it for less than 20 minutes. Or alternatively, use different wine for Kiddush. In other words, wine that you're going to drink, not for Kiddush, can be left open. So if you have some fancy wine that has to be aerated for I don't know how many hours, don't use that wine for Kiddush. Use a different wine for Kiddush, wine that was left covered, and the wine that's sitting there aerated for hours. Enjoy the wine, but not for Kiddush. Have a good night.